A creep wearing this mask haunted the streets of Jersey for 14 years, and when he was finally caught, he was the last person that anyone would have expected. I'm True Crime Caitlin, and this is the case of the Beast of Jersey. Before we delve into today's case, if you enjoy my videos and you would like to hear them in a longer format, you can tune in to the True Crime with Caitlin podcast, available wherever you listen. Today's case takes place in the beautiful Jersey Channel Islands. It was a November evening in 1957 when a 29-year-old female nurse was stood at a bus stop when she was attacked from behind. A man wearing a frightening mask and a long raincoat struck her over the head, tied a rope around her neck, and then dragged her to a nearby field where he would go on to assault her so viciously that she was left needing stitches. She was left alive by her attacker, but absolutely traumatized. This would be the first of many attacks by the monster who was dubbed the Beast of Jersey. He would initially scope out and predominantly attacked women and young girls, prowling in the night, hunting them down, and then attacking. Each time he would use a rope to subdue his victims, either by tying it around their neck, binding their hands behind their back, or sometimes even both. They would then be pulled to nearby fields or concealed areas and then assaulted. Each of the victims would survive their attacker, and when they reported their attack to the police, they all described this man as wearing some sort of mask like this. He had more than one of them to conceal his identity. Because he was wearing this, the victims couldn't get a good look at him, but they would say that he was likely in his 40s. He was quite tall, he was around about 5'6", he had a moustache and also a musty smell about him. Come 1960, 3 years since his initial attack, the Beast would escalate. He would climb through the bedroom window of a 12-year-old boy who awoke to see this stood in the darkness at the bottom of his bed. Alongside this absolutely horrifying mask, the attacker had started wearing bracelets with nails protruding from them. Just as he did with his earlier victims, he would bind this child, take them to a field, and then assaulted him. Sometime later, a woman is asleep in her home in the middle of the night when she hears her downstairs phone ringing. She goes down to answer it, and when she picks up the phone and puts it to her ear, she hears a click followed by silence. Thinking nothing of it, she went back up to bed, but was disturbed once again an hour later by noises coming from downstairs. She went down to investigate, flicking on the light so she could see, but when she reached the bottom of the stairs, someone turned the light off. She raced towards the phone to call the police for help when she was grabbed by a man who demanded that she give him some money or else he would kill her. But when this man heard this woman's teenage daughter upstairs, he let go of the woman, making a beeline for the teen girl. The mother took this as an opportunity to run out of the house and to a nearby neighbour's house to call the police for help. The man had cut her own phone lines. By the time the woman arrived back home, the Beast had already left, and he had already barbarically assaulted her daughter. Pressure was reaching a boiling point for the police force on Jersey, as people all across the island were demanding answers. They were living in fear and terror that they could possibly be the next victim of this evil monster. Police would go on to arrest a local man, however he was very quickly released because they had absolutely no evidence against him. However, once the locals got wind of this man's arrest, they automatically assumed that because he had been arrested, he must be guilty. And so, in retaliation for all of the crimes that had been happening, the locals burnt down this man's house. He actually had to flee the island for his own safety, and the attacks continued. He wasn't the Beast. The actual Beast continued to escalate. Whereas before his victim profile was mainly women and young girls, he had now begun abusing much younger children. One of his youngest victims was an 8-year-old boy. For 14 years, this man hunted, prowled the streets of Jersey, and to him, Anyone could have been a victim. When the residents learned who the real perpetrator was for these sadistic, horrific, unthinkable crimes, they could not believe it. It was the last person that they would have ever expected. On the 17th of July 1971, two police officers who were just hours into their night shift were in the middle of a high-speed police chase. They were sat at some traffic lights when a car flew past them going straight through a red light, forcing these officers to chase after it. The car would eventually crash in a tomato field, and after a short on-foot pursuit, the officers would arrest 46-year-old Edward Pearsnell. Edward was a Jersey local. He was born and raised there. He was a married father, and he and his wife had actually ran a foster home for vulnerable children. The children who would go in and out of this home would refer to Edward as Uncle Ted, and he would be their Santa at Christmas, encouraging the children to sit on his knee. From the outside, he appeared to be very normal, kind, and even empathetic. He had never been in trouble with the police before, aside from one instance where during World War II, he stole food to give to starving families. When the car that he had attempted to speed away in was finally searched, officers would discover one of the very distinct masks that was worn by the beast, along with other items that were connected to his crimes. Edward Pearsnell would be arrested in connection with the Beast of Jersey assaults, and he was convicted by a jury. Edward was handed a sentence of 30 years imprisonment for all of the horrific things that he did. However, he was let out after 20 years because of good behaviour, and this man actually tried to go back to Jersey, where he had inflicted all of that horror, but the locals quickly sorted that. They were not going to let him back on the island. Following this, he would move to the Isle of Wight, where he died in July of 1994 after suffering from a heart attack.